Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hummingbird Assembly. Happy Nurturing Day. I'm going to skip over our usual announcements in favor of this little one. We talked about this extensively last year on Mother's Day. I think it's really important that we understand Mother's Day in a different capacity than which it has been discussed in the media commonly for really my lifetime. And I think Mother's Day is really meant to be a celebration of the divine feminine that exists within all of us. And so I talk about Nurturing Day as opposed to Mother's Day. That's not to say I don't buy my mom a card and love her, and because I do. I wouldn't be here without her. But I like to honor within all of the people in my world all of the ways in which they take care of themselves and those around them. Because as we nurture ourselves, we create space for people to nurture themselves. And that is the most important thing, because it leads always back to self-love. So in honor of Nurturing Day, I brought these roses, and I would like everybody to take some home. It's a reflection of you as a divine being with a feminine aspect. And on Father's Day, we will talk about the masculine aspect that we all embody as well. Because I think we need to celebrate the yin and the yang that makes us whole beings. So there you go. That's what I have to say about that. I shared a video about it. I don't think I shared it on the Hummingbird Assembly page, but last year I recorded a video. I have a Reverend Michelle page, and the video's there, and I've been sharing it around. And if you wanted to find it, it's #NurtureDay. I think it's really important for, not just because we need to acknowledge the roles that we all play, because there are so many people around us who carry pain on this day for being distanced from their children, from being distanced from their parents. Perhaps their children have passed away. Perhaps their parents have passed away. Perhaps you long to be a parent and you were never able to be so. This is not a day for joy for many people. And exploring this whole avenue of nurturing brings, I'd like to think, an aspect of peace to those people. So if you wanted to look up the video and you wanted to share Happy Nurture Day, that would be lovely. But really the most important thing is to make sure you do something for you today. And maybe for some of you that's being here before you go and do something that is interesting. Yeah. Does anybody have any comment or reflection on that idea? Or shall we move on to discussion?
I love it. It was wonderful, and thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. You may have noticed, I know I said I wasn't going to do usual announcements, but I realized there's a slight change that we need to discuss. You may have noticed at the back of the room, the white box is no longer there. We have a new system for donations that is very orderly and organized. Deep gratitude to people who could do order. Bev has gone through all of our records of donations, and if at any point in the history of Hummingbird Assembly you have made a contribution in an envelope to the Hummingbird Assembly, you have an envelope in the bin at the back. So if you turn, you can see it's like a clear bin, and in front of it there's like a lime green basket. In the bin itself are little cards that sort things alphabetically, so it will be filed by last name. So, for example, if your last name starts with an N, you'll probably find it under the N tab.
I love it. Behind the N tab, right?
Pardon me?
Behind the N tab, not in front.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Tab, and then the letters behind it follow. Yes, thank you for that, Annie.
Yes, thank you.
And then once you've made your contribution into your envelope, if you could just put it into the lime green basket in the front, it makes it easier for us to track collections and know whose envelopes we need to empty at the end of each Sunday. So thank you very much, Bev, for putting that system together for us. There may be more tweaks and changes to the process as we grow, but for now, this is what it is. So what else did I want to share? The sign-up sheets. Thank you, Vanna. This morning there were quite a few of you here to help me. Some of you were even waiting in advance of me being here. I deeply appreciate you being here to help set up. If people would like to continue to support in that way, I would say immense thanks, because there's a lot of work to do. Shout out to Sam and Ellie, my two kids who are here today, who helped set up the chairs and lay out the intentions and bring in the benches and all the work that they did. Thanks, guys, for being here for me. Over here on the side, we have another sign-up sheet, so if you'd like to put your name down to help us set up the space for gathering, or to help us tear down for gathering, please do so. You'll note, those of you who often help us tidy up, the dishwasher, the sanitizer is not working. So we will just wash dishes like we always do, but then leave them to dry on the towel that's over there, and that's the process. Good morning and welcome. All right, so now that all of that is out of the way, let us begin with our opening intention, which you'll find on the handout on your seat. May I come to understand that blessings are everywhere, that my attitude will affect outcomes, and that challenges are often gifts in disguise. May I come to trust that most things can get better with time, that my instincts and gut feelings have value, and that a positive attitude makes things go smoother. May I come to see that I have many skills and talents I can use, that I am a positive influence on many people, and that there are those around me who wish me well. May I come to value that today is a blessing to be enjoyed, that each person is unique and important, and that each moment of my life has meaning. Today, we are discussing a fun law. It is the law of abundance.
Bring it.
Right?
Yeah.
We could all stand a little more abundance, I'm sure. This is the 19th law. So next week is our last week of law exploration. So I hope you're putting some suggestions in the green bin for what you want to talk about. So the law of abundance says, you have within yourself everything required to make your earthly incarnation a paradise if you choose to accept that which is your divine birthright. We live in a universe of abundance, although the majority of those populating our planet appear to view it as a universe of scarcity. And that's all it says.
Can I ask you to repeat it, please?
For sure.
Thank you.
You have within yourself everything required to make your earthly incarnation a paradise if you choose to accept that which is your divine birthright. We live in a universe of abundance, although the majority of those populating our planet appear to view it as a universe of scarcity. It's kind of deep, right?
Yeah.
Lots of things.
Yeah. You have within yourself everything required to make your earthly incarnation a paradise.
I think our societies are set up for quantifying things, and that's probably the trap.
Quantifying things.
Yes. Like, you have X amount of dollars, and if you don't, then you're designated a certain, economic bracket. If you have a lot, that is considered abundance. We quantify love. Say, I love you lots. Or, so we quantify these things. And I think that is where the scarcity part comes in. Because we think that we have things or we don't have things. And by quantifying it,
And adding to that too, we live limited. There's a limit to everything. We shouldn't be. We are unlimited, but we live limited. We live according to the salary we have. We live according to...
If we did, we wouldn't have quite so much debt. Just
well,
saying.
No, but we are. Everything is a limit. You go in a store, and there's a limit to how much you can spend on your groceries. There's a limit when you go through the school system to what you can learn. You're labeled. Oh, that person is not right. This one's gifted. There's limits on every single thing that we do in life, and that's what needs to be removed. We need to
Is it
realize
limits
we're
or is it just
limitless.
definition?
But doesn't that limit us? The minute a label is applied,
Well, if you
we're
call
limited.
somebody gifted, I don't think they necessarily feel limited.
But the others that
But
are not gifted may.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I think there is a limitation for gifted,
Yeah.
because there's
There's
an
expectation.
expectation
There's an
that,
expectation.
you know,
Exactly.
They're isolated.
They could be gifted in math, but they want to be an artist. Or they could be gifted in art, but they get pushed towards medicine.
Right, and they might not know they're limited, but as living with my brother who is gifted, he would choose to not associate with certain people based on how they appeared, because he didn't think that they would be smart or whatever. So they have a different set of limitations, I think.
Well, I don't think you have to be a gifted person to have that mental limitation. True
So
story.
true. So true.
That's interesting though, because you can broaden that even further. Having been raised by born-again Baptists, I was not allowed to socialize with people who weren't born again. So I was limited in my social circles.
Because they'll lead you down the garden path,
Absolutely.
and then you'll wind up here.
But to expand upon your idea of limitation, I think it's our acceptance of the labels and acceptance of
Right, because the next line is if you
societal
choose to accept.
Right.
Exactly.
So we listen to all the stuff we've heard growing up over our lifetime, right? Like money doesn't grow on trees and live within your means and all that sort of thing.
Or look at that rich bitch.
Yeah.
Or they live
Yes,
up on
and it's
Snob Hill.
Tied, yes, to
Right?
negative association, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, well, if I become wealthy, now I'm going to be that rich bitch.
Well,
Instead of the
all those
impoverished bitch I already am.
And that's the scarcity.
Yes, yes, very much so, very much so.
I think people limit themselves or have, depending on what they're looking, some people feel that they have to have designer clothes or designer items or the best of things when they live a certain lifestyle in their workplace. And when it comes to just appreciating if you see something that you like, instead of looking at who is going to represent it, because I'm not a designer person. And when you look at how much more you can have if you did spend that money on a designer item, for example, or if you saved your money and paid for things as you need them, and then use the balance that you saved for what you want. I don't know. I'm trying to say here that we look at ourselves as, some people think they're lacking, but if they only looked at all the other things that they have around them, and we may not have the biggest, best house, but we have a house and it's ours, and
Right.
vehicles are ours, and people
Right.
are maxed out on their credit cards, and we're like living off, like whatever we get is paid off, so everything we have is ours, and it may not be.
It's a shift in perspective, surely.
And I say, I'm so blessed, maybe this is my lottery. And I always say, because I buy my tickets hoping that, and it's like, you know what? I'm looking at this going, hey, this is my lottery. Because some people say to me when I do stuff, I'm going, yeah, well, that's paid off. Oh, must be nice. Going, everybody has that option to pay things off, or buy how they choose to, or spend how they choose to. But it's based on material things most of the time. They don't look at their health or their things that they can enjoy with what they have.
So I think this is a great point to ask the question here, because the next part of the line is, choose to accept that which is your divine birthright.
Right.
And when you're talking about those things like health, what is the divine birthright? What is your divine birthright?
Happiness.
Joy.
Hey, it's to create paradise is what the line said, right?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So in all aspects of life, we have that before us if we choose it.
Have you heard that, I don't know if it's an analogy or a proverb or what, but someone is traveling to the other side and they're shown paradise and hell. And first they look in hell, and it's people sitting around this giant pot of food with spoons that are so long, and they can't get the spoon to their mouth and they're starving. And then they look in paradise, and it's all these people sitting around a giant pot of the most delicious food with really long spoons, and they're feeding each other. Comes back to that choice.
It's always back to the choice and what you choose to accept. It talks about you have everything within you. And we
Right.
often say that you have everything you need. What you need is within you. I've told people that. And, but it's what your perception. It keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? how you perceive. It's like, I can't spend that money because I might not have enough for next week.
Jenny remarks here online that abundance is a state of mind.
Yeah.
It goes back to that idea of gratitude is a state of mind.
Yes.
And I think abundance is something to share.
Mm.
So if you have abundance, it's not like you acquire and keep acquiring
Yeah.
And hoard it,
and hoard it.
right?
Yeah, because what you give out comes back.
Exactly.
Then why do people hoard?
Why do we what?
Why do people
Fear.
hoard?
Fear.
Fear,
It's fear.
fear of not having enough,
That scarcity
right?
mindset.
They've gotta save it for the rainy day.
Yeah. Seeing my husband's family, who is Japanese, and they were in concentration camps, I see that very, very strongly. His mom and dad were massive hoarders. She saves everything. Quart milk bags, washes them out, saves them. I mean, you open a cupboard in her kitchen and it's stand back for the fallout. There's so much stuff. And I know that that's why. It's fear of how they spent their younger life. Her father owned a hotel in Vancouver, taken away. So everything they had was taken away. So I think fear plays a huge role in why we hoard stuff. We're scared that we might not have it for tomorrow.
Okay, so if we flip that, oh, sorry, did you want to say
Yeah,
something
I was
before I
also
flip
gonna
it?
say, you also become attached to things. One can become attached to things. Oh, that has a memory attached to it.
Right. So that's the part I was coming to, actually.
Right.
So, and in a real life example, my husband keeps all kinds of things because of the memento, the keepsake value that's attached to things. He has newspaper clippings. He has the movie tickets from the first date we went on. He has all kinds of things where I'm like hard pressed to keep anything. So does it indicate, what does that indicate something? I guess that's the question I want to ask. If we're saying that people who hoard things are living in fear, if you are not attached to memories and things, does that suggest the opposite?
Well, we're encouraged to live in the moment, right? Not to be stuck in the past or looking back all the time, but be present, live this moment, and move forward.
And you assume
think-
you're always gonna have the memory.
And hoarding is going to have you living in the future. Because you're worrying, you're
Oh,
scared,
that's
you're full of
interesting.
fear. So you're living in the future. You're right, you're not living in the moment.
But it's caused by the past? I
Well, it's
love
all-
this.
yeah, I mean, it's all joined together, isn't it? Every minute runs into the next one, so they're all connected.
But if we agree and accept the idea that people hoard because of some scarcity that they experienced in their past, and now they're collecting everything, that's all about the future? Like, they're time traveling.
They are.
As hoarders, they're time travelers. They're Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I think it's very primal instinct to hoard as well. Like it's a biological thing that we're very hard to break free from.
What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Because in the past, they would have hoarded supplies, right? We would have hoarded whatever would keep us warm in the
Food.
winter,
The
or
harvest,
food,
right?
or
Yeah, exactly.
wood. Like we
But
did.
how does that translate to magazines?
Yeah, like it's not.
Or,
not hoarding,
because that's what
that's
people are
stored.
hoarding, right?
Because they brought us-
Is it just
Hoarding is
misplaced of that
disposable.
biological imperative?
Yeah, I mean, it's only been, what, the last couple hundred years maybe, that we have had abundance in shelter and food and,
Well, the refrigerator's less than 100 years old, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really? Wow.
Well, my mom remembers ice
Me too.
being
Yes,
delivered,
lots.
and she's not 100.
Yeah.
So I'm
You're
just
going
saying.
straight on that. We also we lived down a street that it was cobblestones.
Yeah.
It wasn't pavement, and we had that ice
And you
box.
guys were urban,
Yeah.
right?
we
So
were.
if you didn't have a refrigerator, you could be sure that most of
Yeah.
the
And
rural areas didn't.
There was hoarding out of necessity. You know,
Right.
You would save that harvest, and you had a root cellar that you would
Yeah.
save
That's not
things
really
in.
hoarding, is it?
it's,
I mean, that's stocking
Yeah,
up
that's
for.
storage.
yeah.
Well, that's
but
what we're
it's-
discussing.
It's also based on
That's what we're
fears, though,
discussing.
right?
Is it that misplaced biological imperative that we've had for thousands of years to collect and keep things so that we are safe? And now that we don't have to do that, we are transplanting that to magazines and maybe teacups. Just saying.
Well, it is, I mean, it is proven that the DNA or the epigenetics of this generation, say, take the black generation. This generation still suffers what the 3 generations back as slaves are suffered. They still feel that. It's still
Well, it's
in their
cellular memory.
epigenetics. It's cellular memory. So you're absolutely right. Maybe that's what it is.
That's
Well,
really
and
cool.
Historically, not all of the stockpiling was necessarily for survival. It was about commerce and income, right? So if you found something that you knew you could trade, but not until the spring, you would stockpile as much as what you could, because at some point somebody might want to
It would
trade
become
it,
money.
buy it.
Right.
It would maybe advance you in the future.
How cool is this?
It's interesting is what it is.
It's
very
very interesting.
I think people who came through the war have a bigger sense of hanging on to critical things. When 2-cup tea bags were made, my grandmother had a heart attack because you only make 1 cup of tea at a time. And so she had little pieces of gauze and a gold safety pin, and she would take out half the tea and make her own little tea bag with the gold pin and make 1 cup of tea. And then she would wash out the gauze and hang it on the wall. She had strings in them. For real. She was really waste not, want none.
Yeah.
And you know, things she hung on to was because somebody might be able to use it.
Well, she came through the Depression, right?
She did, yeah.
Yes.
You know, like my mother
In Toronto.
remembered the Depression. Yes, in Toronto.
But probably like really before the Depression too, right?
Yeah.
Like she would have been around. I think when you said the war, I think you're talking more about World War One.
No, well, no,
World War II.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah.
World War I. But I'm thinking of the Depression.
Because that's 100 years
surrounding-
ago. That's not. That's
Yes.
not.
I'm thinking of the Depression surrounding World War II, though.
Right.
She raised her family in
Yeah.
downtown Toronto
Right.
in that time period, and my grandfather was in hospital, so she was on her own, doing it all,
And she was abundant,
That's a lot.
yeah,
right?
she never wasted tea bags.
She was abundant.
But it's also the messaging that you get as a child. So we certainly weren't from a very financially affluent family by any means, and
A very financially.
we weren't very
Affluent.
Okay.
affluent in finances as a child. And then, so you have toys, you have things, some things, but limited. Then you visit friends who certainly are in a better status in life, and so it becomes this symbol, oh my God, I need to have more. Not that the kids play with those toys, but they're in the stockpiled with stuff. So then I take on this message to be richer, or to be more abundant, I need more things.
Yeah.
So there was a point in time that I was in my job very well paid. And so you're a little bit more freer with your cash, right? So I joined a pantyhose club.
Ooh,
So
hey,
every
big
month,
spender.
3 pairs of pantyhose. You know,
Oh, you buy
How
them.
frivolous.
you buy them,
Automatically.
yeah, you buy them and they're just shipped to you, mail
Right.
book, right? And at some point, I
That
have
was
a-
Enchantress. I think I had a membership there too.
So at some point, I have a whole dresser full of white, beige, blue.
Oh, my God.
Because they didn't run, they were the best pantyhose ever. And then, things change in life anyways, I decided to invest in business as well as my job. I live in storage.
And stop wearing
Everything was
pantyhose.
in storage. So 5 years later,
She opened a warehouse.
I take the stuff out of storage, I have the suitcases of pantyhose. And I had paid the store for 5 years.
Wow.
And it hits
Isn't
me
that
like a brick.
something
Hits
that
me
you've
like a brick
paid to
thinking,
store?
Look at that emotional baggage, not abundance.
Right,
And I sent it all off to the shelters.
right.
I didn't even open the other, I sent it in a suitcase, I don't want to see what's in that anymore.
Yeah.
Just off of those. It's just
So you made a
crazy.
choice.
Yeah, but so at some point, you're thinking that you're building towards abundance. You got to hoard. Yeah,
Okay, so what is abundance? Maybe let's get granular for a minute.
Well, I have have a little saying that I use every day in a prayer, and I ask for an abundance of prosperity, health, wealth, happiness, and joy.
But what is abundance?
A lot of it.
A
that
very
will-
large quantity of something. It says
A very large
Beth.
quantity of something. So we come back to your first comment about having to quantify.
Right.
So do we need to quantify, measure
It's all in our perspective, right?
to be abundant?
My perspective of a lot is could be very different from Susan's or, anyone else.
I'm gonna quantify abundance in a different way.
Let's hear it.
Abundance is a lack of selfishness.
Abundance is a lack of selfishness. Good morning. Abundance is a lack of selfishness. So like when Brad and Angelina were still together and happily ever after, and they had all of that money and all of those children and all of those properties, none of those things identified them as abundant. It would be more like, maybe we need to define selfishness then. Because I often talk about how I don't think selfishness actually is a thing. I think it's when people try to make you feel guilty for feeling good about yourself. Like my father told me when I was 7, I was selfish for having a bath. I was just having a bath.
You filled the tub to the top, did you? You didn't sit in a quarter of an inch of water?
Probably did fill the tub right up.
I love how these laws all interconnect. Love,
Yeah.
Because all I'm going back to is love. Self-love. If you don't love yourself, you're going to want more and more and more to fill that hole that's within you. It's like they're so interconnected as we've gone through these laws. It all starts with self-love. And I've seen it so clearly, even in myself, in my own family. You're trying to fill that hole. You compulsively eat. You compulsively spend. Everything is done to fill that hole because it's like, if I just lose 10 pounds, I'm going to be so much happier. Oh, if I just have my debt paid off, I'll be so much happier. No, you won't be. Love yourself first. And then you'll be happy. And then what comes is abundance.
I want to explore that because I think in spiritual circles that's said a lot. And for people who have no idea of how to do that, it's almost an offensive response. And I'm not offended. I don't think you are being offensive, but I'm thinking about people who might be watching this down the road, who want to explore abundance in their life, and maybe we settle on the idea that you just have to love yourself first and therefore you become abundant. How do you do that? When your world has shown you fail for this reason and for that reason, and you lived through this experience and this trauma, and you're really deeply entrenched in your idea of you as a victim.
Yeah.
How do you get to a place where you can even begin to explore self-love?
I think
Are there actions?
I think one has to look at one's core values. I think you really have to assess what you value in your heart. I think that's maybe a way to start.
Does somebody have a pen? I feel like I need to be taking notes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so core values.
I would say it has a lot to do with appreciating what
Sorry,
you
can't
have.
hear you, Chris?
I would say it has a lot to do with appreciating and valuing what you have. Because if you feel that you have a lot or enough, then you feel abundant. If you feel like you don't have enough, even if you have millions, you have scarcity.
Okay, so far we have in the pathway to self-love, exploring what your idea of core values are and what's important to you, and then next appreciating what you do have. Do we think it lines up with those values? So if to you it's valuable to have 18 gold rings and you have 16,
But that's
is it
material.
relevant?
They're
Right, but maybe that's your core value at this point. If you're just starting to figure out how you can make your life better, we're probably coming at it from a very consumeristic, materialistic place. Like if you think about when you started shifting in your life, and I'm not sure when that was, but if you think about that, at that time you were probably entrenched in some things like that. I know for sure I was. So do we line up that core value to these things that we already have? A core value for me is feeling safe and secure, and I have a house to go to where I don't experience violence. Would those things line up?
They could, and if you have, I would say if you have things that you feel you need to have abundance, you measure where you are in respect to the goal and set it as a goal. This is what I have, I value it, I appreciate it. This is what I wish and this is my goal to get there. And set it as a path as opposed to something that's more like envy.
Okay. Okay, so identifying, exploring your core values, appreciating what you do have, which may or may not be tied to your values. What else can you do to start loving you?
Gratitude.
Gratitude, big one.
And doesn't it all depend
Me
too,
too.
at which point?
Me too.
Okay, lady. Doesn't it depend too, though, at what point you are in the awakening process? Like,
For
we
sure.
all awaken very differently.
For sure.
With different thoughts and different
Yeah.
things that we have to work on. So I don't think we can say this is how you're going to, go from A to B, because your A might be really different than
Right.
my A.
And as we often talk about, I don't think it's a straight path. We'll go back and through and circle over and skip.
And I think that's an important message, because I see our society as being very linear, when
Right.
it really isn't.
It's not.
It's a process, and I think people have to understand that it's a process, and that's okay. Where you are right now is okay. People are shocked when I say that. Where you are right now is okay, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Have
It
you
is.
seen where I am? This is not okay. Right? But that's how people respond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's our own individual journey of life. Because I think of my own journey of different things that have happened through our life and thinking, it's like, is this what it's supposed to be about? And listening for the answer. Because when we get experience or get stuck in some darkness, and part of it is, do we accept that darkness and just stay in a state of depression, or do we start moving through things? And part of it is asking the universe, asking ourselves, just scream it out, whatever is one's method of attempting to shift.
This is a rabbit hole, but I want to go down it. Thanks for uncovering it. Can you, I think, so you said about depression, and do we just like call it what it is, or do we move through things? I feel like you can't move through your depression without acknowledging that you are depressed. But then I wonder, because we come back to defining and how we limit ourselves by defining it. So I don't know.
But you can't just skip over it.
No, but
You know,
perhaps you go through it even without saying consciously, oh, you know what, I am depressed.
Right. it's
Can
just
you go
recognizing
through
when
it?
you are.
I think it's an awareness issue. So if you lack awareness in the things that are troubling you or preventing you from being loving or happy, then you can't eliminate those things.
If you lack awareness about the things that are limiting you from being unhappy, then you can't move through those things. That's what you said?
Basically.
First, you have to have the awareness.
Right.
Yes.
Before you can start to shift anything.
Right. So there has to be a willingness to change, a willingness.
The
to
choice. We come back to the choice.
You gotta be willing to let go of it. Like, having gone through an awful depression prior to my awakening, I was not willing to let it go for about 8 months.
Well, there's a TED
I
Talk
loved
that
how it
says,
felt,
So
being
you
all
gotta-
wrapped
yeah,
up in that shit.
there's a
It felt
TED
great.
Talk that says spiritual awakening and depression are two sides of the same door.
Yeah.
And you cannot get to spiritual awakening without going through a period of depression.
But you really, what you said about being willing, you have to come through it. Because people would say to me, well, just snap out of it. You know, your mom's been gone for 6 months. I couldn't snap out of it because it felt good. Being wrapped up in that black hole actually was comforting. So you have to get to a point where you're like, this is not serving me anymore, and I'm willing to release it and move on. And it doesn't happen right away for everybody.
self-love also comes from feeling worthy and self-esteem, because I know for me, I recently have gone through the most difficult time to this point in my life. In about 6 to 8 weeks, I put my dog down. I had 2 deaths. I was hospitalized for 4 days. I got ejected from my house, and then 4 days after I got out of the hospital, I was sent an email for a breakup. So that was a lot to go through.
That's an intense
in 8
period.
weeks,
Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks. However, I am entirely grateful for everything that happened, because going through that showed me the abundance of friends that I have, the abundance of support I have. I was able to finally see myself and start to love myself more because of everything that happened. And I mean, I'm grateful that my partner basically hospitalized me. And I'm grateful for the fact that there was a breakup, because now I see and I can literally honestly say I deserve better than that. And so it comes back to gratitude and self-worthiness, and that, I think, is what leads to self-love.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
It's often those painful processes that allow us to have a new beginning.
Yeah. And you recognize through that horrible path that you're strong, capable, and deserving of better.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
the most
when it
beautiful
comes to the other
part.
side and you can see the gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Blessing.
even in terms of the roughness that I've gone through, like, I still love my partner and wish them only the best.
Right.
And I wasn't in a place at that point to be able to give them that, so they deserve better too.
Yeah. I love this group. We just have a few minutes left in the law of abundance, unless we want to bring it back next week. So let me read this again. You have within yourself everything required to make your earthly incarnation a paradise if you choose to accept that which is your divine birthright. We live in a universe of abundance, although the majority of those populating our planet appear to view it as a universe of scarcity. Is there anything else that we feel needs to be remarked upon?
I think we should revisit it again next week, just because there's so many different perspectives about it. And we're almost done anyways, right? So why not spend...
You're going to buy me another week. Love you, Jacqueline.
It just helps to digest it and then come back with more. And there's going to be other people here that aren't here today. And
We'll get different, fresh injections.
though it seemed like a small thing, it is very...
It's a quantity thing, so we need to do it more than once.
Yeah. So schedule it for 2 more weeks.
Well, I just want to say, on the note of abundance, you know, last year on Mother's Day, there were 8 of us. And I was really excited that anybody came, because it was Mother's Day, and I know people have families and they have mothers and they wanted to go and celebrate. And now here, there's way more than 8 people. And I feel very abundant in the community that we have built here together. And I want to thank you all for showing up honestly and authentically on your good days and your bad days and all the in-between days. I love you deeply. Thank you for joining us online, and we'll be back next Sunday. We'd love to see you here in person at the Brain Injury Association of Durham Region, 850 King Street East, West, 850 King Street West in Oshawa. Thanks, bye.